Hi everyone, I'm Mike. I'm an artist based in the UK and I sell my work, both originals and prints, all over the world. Every Sunday I post a video. This is either a painting tutorial, a real-time demo, or a plein air adventure. I enjoy painting a range of subjects including animals, landscapes, people including portraits, and the occasional still life. I also enjoy using quite a wide range of media, including conventional acrylic, interactive acrylic, watercolour, ink tints, and even marker pens, and sometimes I just combine all of these together. The painting's completely dry now, and I've cleaned and refreshed my palette, but I've also added some titanium white, which is more opaque than the tinting white I've been using so far. And I'm using a mixture of that with the alizarin to give me a pale pink. Using the small filbert brush, and I'm just going to add some more detail to the head to begin with. And I'm going to, having put those sort of areas of very pale pink on, just adding a little bit more of the crimson to that same mixture, so that the highlights I put down here are just a little bit darker. And then we'll go a touch lighter again. And now what I'm going to do is mix up kind of a yellow ochre for the beak. And we'll also come in with some sort of purpley colours as well in just a moment. All right, so I've added quite a lot of yellow to the darker pink I had. Added a touch of blue as well. And we'll use this as a base colour for the beak. And in general, that whole area, because I'm going to cover some of this in just a moment. But I often find it helps to just sort of define a clear shape before we add highlights and so on. So a lot more white and yellow mixed in with that same colour, with just a touch of that same colour really. And yeah, as I apply it now, I can see that that colour I'm adding is almost identical to the background, which wasn't intentional. And it's making the tip of the beak disappear, but I will address that later. For now, I'm quite happy with that tone. So we'll leave that area for the moment and come up here now and add some of the lighter feathers. Now on my reference, in this area here, there's a lot of white, a lot of sort of speckling. And in the reference, at a glance, it looks pretty much pure white, but I need to leave myself somewhere to go in terms of having some bright highlights. So I'm actually applying a mixture of the titanium white with a touch of the ultramarine blue. So this is obviously going to be a lot lighter in tone compared to the background that I'm putting on. Sorry, it's going to be a lot lighter in tone compared to the background that I put on earlier. But it isn't actually pure white. So the reason I'm doing this, as hinted at a moment ago, is that what I'll do is later on, I'll come back in with some touches of pure white so that there are highlights within the highlights. So again, I'm not copying the pattern exactly, but I'm just trying to put down enough information to capture the kind of general feel of the colouring of the feathers. So I'm quite deliberately varying the angle, the size, and the type of mark I'm making with the brush, just by angling the brush differently or applying a different amount of pressure. Because what I absolutely want to avoid is, what looks to be a regular pattern. But at the same time, I'm keeping, I'm constantly referring to my reference and looking at the direction of the marks on the hen itself. And some of this pale blue colour I've just realised I can use on the beak. Again, there are brighter highlights, but it's about getting the tone in the right ballpark to begin with. And even though there isn't really much blue on this pink bit, I'm going to put a little bit there as well. And then I can continue with this patterning, but trying to be careful not to do too much. I think this same colour is going to work quite well as the next step, more or less for the whole of the body and the tail. So we will keep going on that, but I'm going to try and preserve where I can. So for example, this light brush mark here, I quite like that. I think that works quite well. So we'll preserve some of it, but add to it and hopefully complement it as we go. So what I'm very much trying to do is continue to describe a sense of form and surface contour as I'm applying these marks. So I think there are some artists who are capable of, almost mimicking exactly where every little mark on the reference is and transferring that exactly to their painting. But my brain doesn't work that way. I can't take in the complexity of the pattern. So I just try to, pick up key characteristics and include those in my painting. And then hopefully the overall effect is fairly convincing. Whoops. So again, it does help to, even at this stage, it does help to keep squinting at your reference, because the density of these lighter marks varies on different parts of the hen's body. So there are clusters where there are quite a lot of them. And then there are regions where the lighter marks are relatively sparse. And again, you very much want to avoid just going doop, 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 doop in a regular way. You have to be considered in your mark making, so that ideally every mark that you make you know, you're very much thinking about the shape that you're putting down. So even though I'm working relatively quickly here, I am continually looking back and forth between my painting and the reference. And I'm looking at the, as I said, the density of the lighter marks, the size of those marks, the orientation, shape of those marks. Because all of those things are a part of the story describing the appearance of this animal, this bird. And having said all of that, that doesn't mean that I have to copy the marks exactly. So, you know, I can still choose to deviate from what's in front of me if I think it will help my painting. But my hope is to always do that for the most part in a kind of considered way. But as is the cliche, happy accidents do happen. Sometimes you just sweep the paint across the paper and you get an effect which is just great, and you couldn't replicate it if you tried. So if that does happen, then I always stick with it. But that's probably enough of that one colour, I think, for now. But hang on, having said that, I think I can use some of that on the top of this leg. And perhaps a little bit there as well.